Prince ordered the peasant girl to hold the raging bull to humiliate her, but she calmed the beast. Before we begin this beautiful period romance story, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where you're joining me from. The fields of Provence glowed under the late spring sun, but that morning the light fell upon noise and laughter, not peace. At the Château de Valmont, tents had been raised, musicians tuned their instruments, and the air smelled of roasted meat and wine. The annual fête drew nobles from miles away. They came to be amused, to gossip, to see who would outshine whom. And above them all, restless as ever, stood Prince Adrien de Valmont, heir to lands, fortune, and boredom. He leaned against the balcony rail, staring down at the wooden pen where a black bull stamped the earth. The animal had been brought from Spain, famed for its fury. The courtiers watched from a safe distance, placing bets on which servant would dare enter the pen first. Adrien smirked, the gesture handsome and cruel at once. "Too calm a day," he murmured. "Let us wake it up." The Marquis de Rochefort, his mentor and companion in mischief, raised an eyebrow. "Your Highness, boredom is a dangerous master." Adrien ignored him. "Where is the herdsman who brought the beast?" "Moreau, sire. A good man. His daughter assists him," said the steward. "Ah, the daughter," Adrien said lazily, scanning the crowd below. "Let us see what courage runs in peasant blood." A murmur rippled through the guests as he raised his hand. "Bring the girl forward." At first, no one moved. Then a slim figure detached from the edge of the crowd. A young woman in a faded blue gown, her hair tied loosely with a ribbon. She hesitated, clearly not understanding what the prince wanted. Adrien's smile widened. "Closer." The girl obeyed. Her face was sun-touched, her eyes steady, but her hands clutched her skirt as she curtsied. "Your Highness," she said softly, "your father tends the beast." "Yes, my lord. He raised him from a calf." "Then surely you know his temper," Adrien said, voice carrying over the laughter that had begun to stir. "I wonder if the tales of your skill are true. They say you calm animals with your voice. Is that so?" Elise glanced at the bull, its muscles shivering with rage. "Sometimes, my lord, but not all creatures wish to be calmed." "Then let us see if this one does," he said lightly. "Enter the pen. Show us your gift." The crowd gasped. Someone protested, her father perhaps, but the prince waved him off. "Fear not. If she fails, we shall remember her courage." Elise's breath caught, yet she did not plead. "If I obey, sire, will you promise no harm to him?" The question surprised him. "To the bull?" "To any creature that cannot defend itself," she said quietly. He laughed, half amused, half unsettled. "You have strange priorities, girl. Very well, no harm shall come. But you must earn that mercy." The gate creaked open. The bull pawed the ground, eyes rolling white. Elise stepped inside, small against its shadow. The crowd drew back, murmuring prayers and wagers. Adrien leaned forward, eager for the spectacle. He expected panic, screaming, a chase, yet she walked as if in a dream, her steps slow and even. "Careful, girl," shouted a courtier. "He'll crush you." She did not answer. The bull snorted, swinging its horns, but she kept walking. Her voice rose, not loud, only a whisper that somehow carried over the noise. "Hush now. Easy." The animal froze. Dust swirled around its hooves. The nobles leaned in, the laughter dying away. Adrien frowned. He could not hear the words, but her tone had changed the air itself. She spoke as though to a child, lost in fear. "You're not angry," she said, "only frightened. They tie you, they shout, they laugh. But you remember gentler hands, don't you?" The bull's sides heaved, its head lowered a fraction. Gasps erupted. "By heaven! Look!" Elise took another step. The distance between them closed to less than an arm's reach. Her hand rose slowly until it touched the creature's muzzle. The bull shuddered, then stilled completely. No one spoke. Only the creak of the wooden rails broke the silence. Adrien's throat tightened. He could not understand what he saw. The same beast that had crushed 2 handlers that morning now stood quiet beneath a peasant girl's hand. She stroked its brow, whispering something only the bull could hear. The massive head sank lower until it nearly knelt before her. The crowd erupted in cries of wonder. Some clapped, others crossed themselves. The steward fell to his knees, thanking heaven for sparing them. Adrien stood frozen. It was not the miracle that struck him, but the calm in her face. No triumph, no fear, only serenity. When she turned toward him, her eyes met his. For the first time in his life, he looked away. The Marquis de Rochefort spoke softly at his side. "You've found your entertainment, my prince." Adrienne's voice was tight. "It was supposed to be sport. And now?" He said nothing. Elise curtsied to the onlookers and moved toward the gate. The bull followed a few steps, then stopped as her father rushed to open the exit. She smiled faintly at the animal before stepping out. Her father embraced her, trembling. "Child, you could have been killed." She shook her head. "He wasn't angry, Papa. Only frightened." Adrian descended from the balcony, the nobles parting before him. When he reached her, the laughter began again, softer, uncertain. "Well done," he said. "You've given my guests a story to tell." Her eyes met his. "If that pleases your highness, I am glad." Her tone was respectful, but not submissive. It stung him more than open defiance. Duchess Hélène de Montreux approached, her gown sweeping the dust. She was tall, beautiful, and dangerous in her grace. "A charming trick," she said, smiling sweetly. "I did not know the peasants of Provence were trained in sorcery." Elise stiffened. "It was no trick, your grace." "Oh, but surely it must be," Hélène said lightly. "No one so low-born could tame a creature that frightened noblemen, unless, of course, she has other talents." The laughter returned, nervous and cruel. Adrienne frowned. "Enough, Hélène." She looked at him in surprise. "I only meant to protect you, my prince. People will talk." "Let them," he said shortly. But the damage was done. The murmurs spread again through the crowd. Elise turned to go, but a courtier blocked her path, bowing mockingly. "Tell us, sweet girl, what spell did you use?" "A charm, a song." "Only patience," she said, stepping past him, "and a kind voice." Her calm made the mockery feel childish. Adrian watched her retreating figure, feeling a strange unease. Hélène slipped her arm through his. "You are too kind, my dear. You should have her questioned, for the safety of all." He pulled his arm free. "She is harmless." "She embarrassed you," Hélène said sharply, lowering her voice. "Before everyone. Do you not see how they look at you, as if your pride were broken by a peasant's touch?" He turned on her. "Would you rather I let her die?" Her smile faltered, but only for a moment. "If death keeps order, perhaps." He stepped back, disgusted by the words. The Marquis caught his expression and spoke quietly. "The court feeds on cruelty, Adrian. You fed them well today, now they'll crave more." The prince looked again toward the pen. The bull still stood quietly, head bowed as if waiting for her return. That night the laughter continued in the banquet hall, but Adrian heard none of it. The image of the girl's hand resting on the beast haunted him. He excused himself early, walking alone through the empty corridors. Outside, the fields lay silver beneath the moon. He saw her in the distance, walking beside her father's cart, leading the bull back to the pasture. She moved with the same calm, her steps light on the earth. He should have returned to his guests. Instead, he followed, unseen, until she stopped at the gate of her home. Her father went inside, but she remained outside for a while, looking toward the chateau's lights. Adrian stepped from the shadows. "You should not walk alone at this hour." She turned slowly. "The fields are kinder than your halls, my lord." He winced. "You resent what I did." "I do not resent," she said simply. "But I will remember. I meant no harm." Yet harm came. Her words were soft, but they landed like stones. He studied her face. "How did you do it? The bull, no one could have approached him." "I listened," she said. "When you listen, even fury can rest." He had no answer. Silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant cry of nightbirds. Finally he said, "You are brave." "I am alive," she replied. "That is enough." She curtsied and turned away. He watched her disappear into the small cottage, the door closing behind her. For the first time, he felt a hunger that was not born of pride, but of shame. The next morning, the courtiers spoke only of her, the girl who tamed the beast. The story grew with each telling. Some called it a miracle, others a scandal. Hélène watched the gossip spread and smiled to herself. "Every tale can be turned," she murmured to her maid, "even one of virtue." By midday, rumors had reached the kitchens, the stables, even the chapel. Some whispered that the girl's power came from prayer, others from darker forces. Adrian heard the talk and grew restless. He ordered silence, but silence never obeys a prince. At dusk he rode out to the pastures again. Elise was there, mending a fence. She looked up as he approached. "You came again," she said, not surprised. "I wanted to thank you," he said. "For what, my lord?" "For showing me something I did not know existed." She smiled faintly. "Kindness?" "Humility," he said. Her laughter was soft. "If that is what you seek, you will not find it among those who bow to you." He dismounted, standing beside her. "You speak boldly. I speak the truth." Their eyes met again, and for a moment the distance between them vanished. Then a voice called from the road, Hélène's carriage approaching. Adrien stepped back as the Duchess descended, her expression bright but her eyes sharp. "How delightful," she said, "the prince among his peasants." Elise curtsied. "Your Grace." "Do not trouble yourself, child," Hélène said sweetly. "We were only passing by. But tell me, does the bull still obey your charms?" Elise looked at her without flinching. "He obeys no one. He only trusts." "Ah," Hélène said, feigning interest. "And how does one earn such trust? With words, with a spell, with gentleness." The Duchess tilted her head, smiling at Adrien. "You see, my prince, even beasts yield to softness. Perhaps you should learn from her." The insult was disguised as wit, but it stung. Adrian's jaw tightened. "Enough," he said quietly. Hélène's smile never faltered. "Of course, I only hope the court sees this wonder as you do. They are less charitable." She turned back to her carriage, leaving a trail of perfume and poison. Elise returned to her work, pretending indifference, but her hands trembled slightly. Adrien hesitated. "Do not listen to her. She thrives on cruelty. She is powerful," Elise said. "And I am not. You have more power than you know." She looked at him, uncertain. "Power frightens me, my lord." "Then perhaps you are the only one who deserves it," he said. The sound of hooves faded as Hélène's carriage disappeared. Adrien lingered, watching Elise gather her tools. When she turned again, the sky was darkening. "Go back to your world, my prince. Ours ends with sunset." He wanted to protest, to speak of the strange pull in his chest, but her tone ended the moment. She walked toward her home, the light from her window flickering across the field. Hélène rode back in silence, his thoughts heavy. The laughter at the chateau felt colder now, the wine sour. He avoided Hélène's gaze and spoke to no one. Late that night he stood again on the balcony, looking toward the distant cottage. The wind carried faint music from the fête, mingled with the memory of Elise's calm voice. He did not see the Duchess step quietly onto the balcony beside him. "You think of her," Hélène said. He turned sharply. "You overstep." "I observe," she said. "It is what I do best." "You have given them a story, Adrien. A prince undone by a peasant girl. They whisper it already. Let them whisper. Whispers grow teeth," she said softly. "And if they bite, it will not be her they devour. It will be you." He looked away, refusing to answer. Hélène smiled to herself, her voice sweet as honey and sharp as glass. "Your Highness," she said, "surely such calm before a beast can only come from darker powers. Should we not investigate this miracle?" By the following morning, the laughter that had echoed through the fête had turned into murmurs. The miracle of the bull was no longer a tale of wonder, but of unease. Servants whispered while polishing silver. Courtiers traded glances over their breakfast trays, and the Duchess's soft voice guided every rumor like a hidden hand. They said the peasant girl's eyes gleamed gold when she faced the bull, that her words were not words at all, but spells, that she had made the beast bow not with courage, but with enchantment. Prince Adrien tried to dismiss it, but every corridor he crossed carried the same question, disguised as flattery. "Such power, Your Highness, extraordinary, isn't it? Or remarkable if true that she still walks free." By noon he could bear it no longer. "Bring her to me," he ordered the steward. "At once." The steward hesitated. "Sire, the Duchess advises against it." "Then let the Duchess advise someone else," he snapped. Within the hour, Elise stood before him in the marble hall, sunlight streaming through the high windows. Her dress was clean but plain, her hair unadorned. The guards who had escorted her now looked uncomfortable, unsure why a prince and a peasant stood facing each other in such solemn silence. Adrien dismissed them with a glance. "Leave us." When they were alone, he paced once, then stopped. Do you know what they say about you? I've heard whispers, she said calmly. They call you a witch. Her eyes lifted to his. And you, my lord? What do you call me? He hesitated. I call you inexplicable. She smiled faintly. That is a gentler word than witch. You must help me quiet this nonsense, he said. Tell them how you did it. Tell me, and I'll make them stop. I told you before. I listened to the bull, that is all. He ran a hand through his hair. That cannot be all. Men fear what they cannot explain. Give them reason. I cannot trade truth for their comfort, she said simply. Her tone was not defiant, only sincere, and that made it worse. Adrian turned away, pacing again. You think your honesty will protect you? It will not. You are playing with forces that would crush you for sport. I know, she said. He stopped. Then why not yield? Because I did nothing wrong. For a moment he saw himself in her stead. Surrounded, accused, proud but helpless. The thought unsettled him. I can protect you, he said quietly. She tilted her head. Would you? He met her gaze. If you trust me. A knock interrupted them. The Duchess entered without waiting to be summoned, her expression smooth as silk. Ah, my prince, she said sweetly. I feared you might overtax yourself with such rustic company. Adrien stiffened. You presume too much, Helene. I only seek to guard your honor, she said, gliding forward. This girl's presence stirs talk that harms us both. You cannot allow it. Elise stepped back, folding her hands before her. She has done no harm, Adrien said. She will not be punished for superstition. Helene's voice softened, dangerous in its sweetness. Superstition can become scandal, Adrien. Scandal breeds disloyalty, and disloyalty destroys thrones. Enough, he said sharply. Her eyes flashed. You would defend her against me. I would defend justice. The Duchess smiled again, but it did not reach her eyes. Then let us prove her innocence before all. Bring her to the court. Let the Queen herself see the girl who tamed a beast. Adrien hesitated. He knew what the Duchess meant. A public display disguised as fairness, a trial masked as curiosity. Helene turned toward Elise, her tone light. You see, child, if you are as pure as you claim, you have nothing to fear. Elise bowed her head. If truth is all they seek, I do not fear. Good, Helene said. Then we are agreed. Adrien glared at her. You play a dangerous game, Helene. The court loves games, she murmured. And so do you. That evening, the chateau buzzed with preparation. Servants carried messages to Versailles, announcing that the miracle girl would be presented before the Queen. The nobles gathered like crows around gossip, each adding their own twist. Adrien dined alone, his food untouched. The Marquis de Rochefort entered quietly. Your Highness, he said, you cannot let them take her. She insists she has nothing to hide. She is naive. The court will not see truth. They will see sport. Adrien's hands clenched. Then I'll go with her, Rochefort sighed. And when the Queen asks why a prince defends a peasant, what answer will you give? Adrien met his gaze. The truth. That cruelty sickens me. The Marquis studied him a long moment. Careful, Adrien. Compassion is admirable, but in court it is weakness. And weakness draws blood. The next morning, Elise was brought to the Duchess's carriage. Her father followed on foot until the guard stopped him. She will return, Adrien promised him, though his voice lacked conviction. The road to Versailles was long. Inside the carriage, Helene spoke softly, her tone almost kind. You have courage, girl. It will serve you well, for a while. I have no wish for courage, Elise said. Only fairness. Fairness, Helene repeated. Such a sweet word. Yet in court fairness is given only to those who can afford it. When they arrived, the grandeur of Versailles swallowed them whole. Marble, gold, mirrors, the very air seemed perfumed with power. Elise felt eyes on her from every corner, noblemen whispering, ladies hiding smirks behind fans. The Queen received them in the Hall of Mirrors. She was gracious, curious, and utterly detached. So this is the girl, she said, the one who tamed the Spanish bull. Elise curtsied deeply. Your Majesty, the Queen smiled faintly. Tell us, how did you do it? Some say with music, others with prayer. Neither, Your Majesty. I spoke to him. Ah, the Queen said, amused. And he listened? Yes. The court chuckled softly. And what did you say, my dear? That he need not be afraid. The Queen tilted her head. Afraid? Of what? Of us. The laughter stopped. The Queen's expression cooled. You accuse us of cruelty? No, Majesty, Elise said quietly. Only of not understanding. For a heartbeat the room held its breath. Then Helene's voice broke the silence. Your Majesty, the girl means no insult. She speaks from ignorance, not malice. The Queen waved a hand, half bored, half intrigued. So she tamed a bull with pity. Very poetic. Still, I wonder, should we test this power of hers again? Adrian, standing among the nobles, stepped forward. That will not be necessary. The Queen raised an eyebrow. You object, my prince. I object to cruelty disguised as curiosity, he said. Murmurs spread. The Queen smiled thinly. You speak boldly, Adrian. The court enjoys boldness, but only from those who understand its cost. He bowed slightly. Then let the cost be mine. Afterward, in the garden, Elise found him waiting by the fountains. The moonlight rippled across the water, the noise of the court fading behind them. You should not have spoken, she said softly. They will turn against you. Let them, he said. I cannot stand by while they mock what they do not understand. She looked at him, uncertain. Why do you care? I do not know, he admitted. Perhaps because you remind me of something I once wished to be. Her brow furrowed. And what is that? Honest. They stood in silence for a moment. The night smelled of jasmine and distance. You risk too much, she whispered. And you risk nothing. I risk everything, she said. But not for pride. He stepped closer, voice low. Then for what? For peace, for truth, for the right to be left alone. He wanted to reach for her hand, but stopped himself. You deserve more than peace. I deserve to live without fear, she said. Before he could answer, footsteps echoed on the marble path. Helene appeared, her gown glinting under the lamps. My prince, she said smoothly. The Queen summons you. Adrienne straightened, but her eyes flicked to Elise. The girl too, of course. In the audience chamber, the Queen's tone had changed. Her amusement was gone, replaced by curiosity laced with danger. We have considered the matter, she said. Some find your tale charming, others unsettling. It is whispered that your gift may not come from heaven. Elise knelt. I have no gift, Majesty. Only patience. The Queen studied her. You would not lie to me, would you? I would not lie to anyone. A courtier whispered something behind a fan. The Queen smiled faintly. Such confidence for one of your station. Tell me, girl, would you dare speak to me as you did to the bull? Adrian's heart pounded. Majesty, hush, Adrian, the Queen said. Let her answer. Elise raised her eyes. If your Majesty were frightened, yes. The room went still. Then laughter rippled again, sharper this time. The Queen leaned back. A philosopher in rags. How diverting. Helene stepped forward, feigning concern. Your Majesty, perhaps the girl is not wicked, only misguided. A few days in reflection might cool her pride. The Queen nodded absently. Yes, a gentle confinement. The tower by the river is empty, is it not? Adrian stepped forward. Majesty, that is unjust. The Queen's gaze hardened. And you, my prince, forget yourself. You speak as though for a lover, not a subject. The words struck like a blade. Gasps fluttered through the court. Adrian froze. I speak for reason, he said. For rebellion, Helene murmured. The Queen's tone chilled. Enough. The girl will remain in custody until we determine her innocence. If you object, Adrian, you may join her. Silence fell. Elise turned her head slightly. Do not, she whispered. He swallowed hard, forcing calm. I will obey, Majesty. Good, the Queen said, dismissing them. Let her learn humility. And you, discretion. Guards approached. Elise rose without protest, her face pale but composed. Adrian could not move as she was led away. Only when the great doors closed did he find breath again. Helene stepped beside him, her voice soft enough for only him to hear. I warned you, the court devours sentiment, you should have listened. He turned to her, anger burning behind restraint. You did this. I saved you, she replied. From yourself. He stared after the closed doors. Somewhere beyond them, chains were being locked. Rochefort appeared at his side, grave and quiet. "It is over, Adrien. Let it go." He shook his head. "No, this is not justice. It is the world you were born into." "Then I will unmake it," he said. Rochefort exhaled slowly. "Careful. Words like that have a way of changing lives." Adrien looked once more toward the door. The echo of her calm voice filled his mind, the memory of her hand on the bull. "If this is justice," he whispered, "then I will undo it, even if it costs me the crown." Rain swept over Versailles the night Elise was locked in the tower. It drummed against the stone walls, soaking the courtyard below, and the guards huddled under their cloaks. Inside the narrow cell, she sat by the small window, her hands folded on her lap. There was no fire, no comfort, only the faint scent of damp straw. Yet she felt calm. The fear others expected from her did not come. She had lived her whole life close to silence. She knew how to survive it. At dawn, the door opened. A guard brought bread and water, glancing at her with something like pity. "Forgive me, mademoiselle," he said. "It was not my choice." "No one's choice ever is," she replied softly. The days passed. News spread through the palace. The bull-tamer of Provence, now a prisoner. Some said she confessed to witchcraft, others that she cursed the queen. None of it was true, but truth mattered little. Each whisper fed the next, and the story grew until even those who pitied her began to doubt their pity. Prince Adrien spent those days in torment. He attended councils, smiled when required, but his mind was in the tower by the river. Helene noticed. She had expected regret, not rebellion. "You are restless," she said one afternoon as they walked through the gardens. "I am angry," he answered. "At me?" "At everyone." She touched his arm lightly. "Anger burns quickly, my prince. Better to let it die before it consumes you." He shook her off. "You would have me cold like you." Her lips curved. "Cold survives." He turned away, but she followed. "You can still save yourself, Adrien. The queen already doubts your loyalty. Kneel, apologize, and distance yourself from that girl. It will pass." "And what of her?" "She will fade. People like her always do." He faced her, eyes dark. "Then let them fade me instead." That night, he went to Rochefort's chambers. The older man sat by the fire, reading. "You've decided," Rochefort said before Adrien even spoke. "Yes. You plan to free her. I plan to correct a wrong." "Which is the same thing," Rochefort said, closing the book. "You realize what it means: treason, exile, maybe death." Adrien smiled faintly. "For once, I would rather be guilty than silent." Rochefort poured wine, handed him a cup. "Then you'll need help. The guards can be bribed. The tower door is old. The river runs fast but shallow this season." Adrien looked at him with surprise. "You've thought of everything." "I've served this court too long not to know its cracks," the Marquis said. "But mark me, Adrien. Once you step through that door, there's no return. I have no wish to return." The next night, under a sky torn by clouds, Adrien moved through the shadowed corridors. A hooded cloak hid his face. Rochefort waited by the stables, holding 2 lanterns. "The guards have been sent to the far gate," he whispered. "You'll have half an hour." They crossed the courtyard in silence. The tower loomed ahead, its small window glowing faintly. Inside, Elise stirred, hearing footsteps on the stair. The key turned. The door opened. She rose, expecting another guard, but the figure who entered stopped her breath. "Your Highness," she whispered. He stepped closer. "Quiet. There's no time." "What are you doing here?" "Undoing what I allowed." "You cannot." "I already have." He handed her a cloak. "Put this on." She hesitated. "If they catch you, then let them. But you must go." He reached for her hand. She did not pull away. "Why?" she asked. "Because I cannot stand knowing you suffer for my pride." The door creaked again. Rochefort appeared. "We must move." They followed him down the spiral stairs, the echo of their steps drowned by the wind. At the base of the tower, the gate stood open. One guard slumped against the wall, snoring deeply from the wine Rochefort had given him. "Come," the Marquis said. They crossed the courtyard, slipping through a side gate to the riverbank. A small boat waited, hidden among reeds. The rain had stopped, leaving mist that clung to their faces. Elise looked back once. The palace loomed above the fog, golden even in darkness. "It's beautiful," she murmured, "and terrible." Adrien helped her into the boat. "It's a prison with mirrors," he said. "Nothing more." Rochefort pushed the boat from shore. "I'll mislead their trail. You'll reach the South Road by dawn." Adrien gripped his arm. "You've done more than I deserve." The Marquis smiled sadly. "Deserve has nothing to do with it. Go." The river carried them silently. For a long time neither spoke. The only sound was the creak of wood and the distant cry of an owl. At last Elise said, "You risked everything." "So did you," he answered. "I had no choice." "Neither did I. Not anymore." The faintest smile touched her lips. "You speak like a man who's lost his title. Perhaps I have found something better." She looked away, uncertain. "What will you do now?" "Take you home. Then vanish, perhaps. The court will not rest. You cannot vanish, Adrien. You are their prince." He shook his head. "Not anymore. A crown means nothing when it stains your soul." They drifted beneath a bridge, the shadows hiding them. Dawn painted the horizon grey and pale. When they reached the far bank, he tied the boat to a tree and helped her ashore. "We ride from here," he said. 2 horses waited, tethered under a willow. They rode south, through quiet villages still asleep. The fields spread wide, washed clean by the night's rain. Elise's hair, loosened by the wind, caught faint glints of light. "You could still return," she said at last. "And leave you to them? I am no one of importance." He looked at her. "You are the only one who made me see myself." They stopped by a small chapel at the edge of the road, its roof half collapsed. He dismounted, leading his horse under the eaves. "We'll rest here until nightfall." Inside, the air smelled of dust and old prayers. A single candle burned before the altar, left by some traveller. Elise knelt, not to pray, but to breathe. "What now?" she asked. "We go to Provence," he said. "Your father will hide us until I find a way to keep you safe." She shook her head. "He will be punished for it. I'll protect him." "You cannot protect everyone," she said gently. "No," he admitted, "but I can protect you." She turned toward him, the candlelight flickering between them. "Why?" "Out of guilt, out of love," he said, the words escaping before he could stop them. Her breath caught. "You don't know me." "I know enough," he said. "I know you are everything they are not. I know your strength humbles me. I know that when I watched you face that bull, I saw courage I will never match." She shook her head, eyes bright. "You saw kindness, not courage. Then that is what I love." Silence fell, heavy but not cold. She rose slowly. "If you mean what you say, then prove it. Not by words, but by how you choose to live." "I will," he promised. That night they rode again. Behind them, the alarm bells of Versailles began to sound, faint but growing. The Queen had discovered the escape. Soldiers would follow. By dawn, they reached the hills of Burgundy. A small inn stood beside the road, its sign swaying in the wind. Adrien handed the innkeeper a ring, gold engraved with the royal crest. "We were never here," he said. The man nodded quickly. "Never, my lord." They rested in a narrow room beneath the rafters. Elise sat by the window, watching the road. "They will find us." "Perhaps," he said. "But not before we reach your home." She looked at him. "And then whatever comes." 2 days later, they entered Provence. The familiar scent of thyme and soil filled the air. Elise's eyes softened as she saw her father's cottage in the distance. Smoke rose from the chimney. When they reached the gate, Jacques Moreau came running. "Child, you're alive!" He embraced her, tears of relief streaming down his face. Adrien stood back, letting them speak. Jacques turned to him, uncertain. "Your Highness, why are you here?" "To ask your forgiveness," Adrien said simply. "And your protection," the old man nodded slowly. "You have both, but you bring danger with you." "I know." That night they shared a simple meal. The warmth of the hearth filled the small room. It was the first peace either of them had felt in weeks. Yet it could not last. At midnight, hooves thundered outside. Jacques peered through the shutter. "Riders," he whispered, "dozens." Adrien rose. "They found us." Elise caught his arm. "You must go. And leave you again. Never." "Please," she begged. "They will show mercy to me, not to you." He shook his head. "You underestimate my stubbornness." The door burst open. Soldiers flooded the yard, torches blazing. At their head rode a messenger bearing the Queen's crest. "Prince Adrien de Valmont," he called, "by decree of Her Majesty, you are charged with treason and abduction. Surrender yourself." Adrian stepped outside. The girl came willingly. The only crime here is hers, inspiring a conscience. The messenger sneered. "Your words will hang you." "Perhaps," Adrian said, "but not tonight." He turned to Jacques. "Take her through the back fields. There's a path to the river." "No," Elise cried. "You'll be killed." He smiled faintly. "Not if you keep your promise to live." The soldiers advanced. Jacques pulled her away, protesting. Adrien faced the men, unarmed, unflinching. Before the first could reach him, Rochefort's voice rang out from the darkness. "Hold!" The soldiers froze. The old Marquis stepped forward, his cloak drenched, his face grim. "By order of the council, the prince is to be brought alive to Versailles. The Queen commands it." The messenger hesitated. "We were told—" "You were told wrong," Rochefort said sharply. "Stand down." Reluctantly, the men obeyed. Rochefort turned to Adrien. "You fool," he muttered. "Do you think rebellion is freedom? The Queen wants your head, but she'll take it in public, not here." Adrien glanced toward the woods where Elise had vanished. "Then I'll face her." Rochefort's expression softened. "You won't survive it." "Perhaps not," Adrien said, "but I can delay them long enough for her to escape." The Marquis sighed. "Always the martyr." "Always the fool," Adrien replied. "Thank you, old friend." He mounted his horse, flanked by guards. Rochefort rode beside him as they began the long road north. Behind them, Elise stood hidden among the trees, watching the torches fade. She pressed her hands together, whispering to the night, "Let him live." Far ahead, Adrien looked back once, sensing her eyes on him even through the dark. He whispered to himself, "Let her be free." The first light of dawn broke over the hills. The towers of Versailles awaited. The Queen's judgment would fall swiftly. But Adrien's heart no longer feared it. He lifted his head, the wind carrying her name across the fields as the sun rose over France. The rain had not stopped by the time Adrien reached Versailles again. The guards dragged him through the gates, mud splashing over his boots, his wrists bound but his head held high. Inside the palace, chandeliers still burned, and laughter still echoed in the corridors. The court had been waiting for its spectacle, the fallen prince who had betrayed his crown for a peasant girl. The Queen sat upon her throne in the Hall of Justice, surrounded by nobles whispering behind jeweled fans. Her expression was calm, but her eyes gleamed with calculation. Beside her, Duchess Hélène stood like a statue carved from ice. Adrien was forced to kneel. "Prince Adrien de Valmont," the Queen said slowly, "you stand accused of defying royal command, aiding the escape of a prisoner, and disgracing your house. What say you?" He looked up. "I say your Majesty mistakes conscience for defiance." A wave of murmurs filled the hall. The Queen raised one delicate hand. "You speak boldly for a man in chains." "I speak plainly for a man who has nothing left to lose." Hélène's voice cut through the whispers. "Nothing left to lose, Your Majesty, except perhaps his life. The people already gossip. They call her his enchantress." The Queen turned to Adrien. "Is that what she is to you? An enchantress?" He met her gaze. "She is the first honest soul I have known." The Queen's lips curved faintly. "Then honesty has ruined you?" "If so," he said, "then I am grateful for my ruin." A silence followed, heavy as thunder. Then the Queen nodded to the guards. "Take him to his chambers. He will await judgment there." Hélène watched as they led him away. When the doors closed, she approached the throne and spoke softly. "Majesty, the people whisper already. His punishment must be swift." The Queen's gaze was distant. "Not yet. The court grows restless. Let them hunger for his fall. It will make the lesson stronger." That night, Adrien was locked in his room, once his sanctuary, now a prison. Rain beat against the windows. Rochefort slipped in through a side door, his cloak dripping. "They mean to break you publicly," the Marquis said. "I know. I can still help you flee. There are ships waiting on the coast." Adrien shook his head. "Not without her." Rochefort sighed. "The girl vanished into the countryside. They search every road. If she's wise, She'll hide forever. She won't, Adrian said. She'll come. Rochefort looked at him, pity softening his voice. You speak as though fate obeys your heart. She always has until now, Adrian said quietly. In the hills of Provence, Elise lived in hiding with her father. The soldiers had left, but fear remained. She rose before dawn each day, tending to the cattle, pretending life could return to what it had been. Yet every sound from the road made her heart twist. One morning a messenger appeared, a boy no older than 15, soaked to the bone. You are Elise Moreau? He asked breathlessly. Yes. He handed her a folded parchment. From the Marquis de Rochefort. He says it is urgent. Her hands trembled as she broke the seal. The message was brief. He lives. He will not beg. If you would save him, come. Her father tried to stop her. Child, they will take you again. I cannot let him stand alone, she said. The next night, she left under cover of darkness. The roads were muddy, the journey long, but she did not stop. When she reached the outskirts of Versailles, dawn was breaking, pale and cold. She hid in the stables of a nearby inn until evening, then sought out Rochefort. He opened the door to his chambers and froze. By heaven, you are either braver or more foolish than I thought. Where is he? She asked. Under guard. The Queen will pass judgment tomorrow. Then I must see him tonight. He hesitated. You'll be caught. Then let me be. Rochefort studied her face and saw no fear there, only resolve. Very well, he said. Come. They moved through secret corridors the Marquis had learned over years of service. At last they reached a narrow passage leading to Adrian's chamber. Rochefort whispered, You have 1 hour. When she entered, Adrian was standing by the window, staring into the rain. He turned, disbelief flooding his face. Elise! She crossed the room before he could speak again. You should have run, she said. I couldn't. You risked everything. So did you. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was full of all the words they had left unsaid. She took his hands, feeling the roughness of the rope still etched into his skin. You must leave tonight. Rochefort can help you. I will not flee alone, he said. If I go, it is with you. Then we go together, she whispered. The door creaked. Rochefort entered, his face grim. If you mean to leave, now is the time. The guard will change within minutes. Adrian grasped his arm. How can I repay you? Live well, Rochefort said. That will be revenge enough. They moved swiftly through the shadowed corridors, slipping past servants who bowed without meeting their eyes. When they reached the stables, Rochefort handed Adrian a small satchel. The road west is clear. Follow the river until it bends. After that, you are ghosts. Elise mounted first. Adrien looked back at the palace one last time, its lights shining through the rain. Goodbye, he said under his breath. They rode through the night. By dawn, Versailles was far behind. The road curved through meadows, washed gold by the first light. Neither spoke, afraid to break the fragile peace. At last, near the border of Provence, they stopped by a small chapel hidden among vineyards. The air smelled of earth and rain. We'll rest here, Adrien said. Inside, the chapel was quiet, its walls cracked but standing. A priest, old and half-blind, looked up from sweeping the floor. Travelers? He asked. Pilgrims, Adrien said softly. We seek only a blessing. The old man nodded. All who seek peace are welcome here. They knelt side by side before the altar. The priest murmured the ancient words of prayer. When he finished, he turned to them. You have walked far. Whatever burden you carry, leave it here. When the priest had gone to prepare food, Adrien turned to her. I have no title left, no kingdom, only my heart. Will you take it? She looked at him for a long moment. I do not need a prince, she said. I need a man who will never again bow to cruelty. Then that is what I will be. She smiled, tears glimmering. Then you already are. They stood before the small altar, hands entwined. The priest returned, smiling faintly as if understanding without needing to ask. Shall I bless this union? Adrien nodded. Please. The old man raised his hands, whispering the words that bound them, not in grandeur, but in truth. When it was done, Elise leaned her head against Adrien's shoulder, the tension of weeks melting away. Outside, the rain finally ceased. The first sunlight broke through the clouds, spilling across the vines. Adrien stepped out, looking at the open road ahead. We will not hide forever, he said. No, Elise answered. "But for now, we are free." They walked down the path together, hand in hand, leaving footprints in the soft earth. Somewhere in the distance, bells rang faintly, not of alarm, but of mourning. As they disappeared into the fields, the wind carried their laughter, the first sound of peace either had known since the day the bull bowed its head in Provence. The world around them seemed to breathe again, as if nature itself had waited for this silence. That night they found shelter in a small farmhouse owned by a widow, who asked no questions. Adrian worked beside her, chopping wood, mending fences, while Elise tended the animals. For a few days, time stood still. One evening, sitting by the hearth, she said, "Do you regret it, leaving?" "No, everything." He shook his head. "Regret is for those who had no reason. I had every reason. You," she smiled faintly. "And now? Now, I have peace. Whatever comes, I will face it as a man, not a prince." The sound of rain returned, softer this time, washing the past away. For the first time there was no fear, no pretense, only two people who had chosen truth over comfort. In the glow of the fire, she reached for his hand and he held it, neither speaking. Words were no longer needed. Outside, the fields of Provence stretched endlessly, and the air carried the scent of home. They did not yet know what fate awaited them, nor did they care. The world had narrowed to the space between their joined hands, and in that space they had found their freedom. The storm that had followed them for so long had finally broken. The night was quiet, the wind gentle, and for the first time, Adrian slept without dreams. When dawn came, the sky was clear. They stood outside the farmhouse, watching the sun rise over the hills. He turned to her, smiling. "We begin again," she nodded. "Together." And as the morning light warmed their faces, the last echo of the court's cruelty faded into memory, leaving only the promise of a life built not on power or fear, but on mercy and truth. The years passed quietly, and time softened everything that once burned. The world beyond the hills still whispered of princes and palaces, of vanished heirs and fallen duchesses, but in Provence, such stories faded with the seasons. Life had returned to its rhythm, the hum of bees, the creak of carts, the laughter of children running barefoot through the fields. In that peace stood a small farmhouse of white stone. It belonged to no lord, owed nothing to any crown. There lived a man who once wore velvet and pride, and a woman whose calm once silenced a raging bull. Adrian and Elise were no longer prince and peasant. They were simply husband and wife. On that morning, the air carried the warmth of spring. Elise hung linen on the line, her hair unpinned, her hands steady. Adrian came from the stables, sleeves rolled to his elbows, a small child perched on his shoulders. The boy's laughter rang like a bell. "Your son has your stubbornness," Adrian said, setting the child down. "And his father's mischief," she answered, smiling. "He nearly set the chicken coop free again." He laughed. "A true Valmont, then." She gave him a look that mixed amusement and warning. "There are no Valmonts here, my love. Only morose." He stepped closer, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "And yet when he looks at me, I see my father's eyes. Perhaps blood remembers even when titles are forgotten." "Let it remember kindness instead," she said softly. "That will be his legacy." From the barn, Jacques called to them. "The calf's been born. Come quickly." They ran together, the child trailing behind, half stumbling in excitement. Inside the barn, the mother cow lay breathing heavily, while the calf struggled to its feet. Elise knelt beside it, her hands gentle as always. Adrian watched her, a quiet smile on his lips. "You still have the same gift," he said. "It is no gift," she replied, "only patience." He crouched beside her. "The court called it witchcraft. I call it grace." She looked up at him, eyes shining. "And yet it was grace that saved us both." They stayed there until the calf stood, trembling, but alive. Outside, the sky was wide and blue. Jacques carried the boy out to see the newborn, lifting him high. "See, little one? Life begins again and again." Adrien took Elise's hand as they stepped into the sunlight. "I used to think happiness was something a man claimed by force," he said. "Now I know it's what remains when pride is gone." She squeezed his fingers. "Then we have all we need." Later that day, they went to the village. It was the day of the spring fair, and people from nearby farms had gathered in the square. Music floated through the air, fiddles and laughter mingling like the scent of bread and flowers. When they arrived, some villagers bowed respectfully, others simply smiled. They all knew their story, though few spoke of it aloud. An old man selling ribbons called out, "Madame Moreau, your son grows taller each year. Soon he'll be taller than his father." Adrian laughed. "Impossible. I'll keep him on short rations to prevent it." The villagers laughed and Elise shook her head. "You've learned nothing of humility." "Only because you've already stolen all of it," he said. A group of children ran past, chasing a dog through the crowd. Their son joined them, and for a moment Adrian watched, lost in thought. "Do you ever wonder," he said quietly, "if the world remembers who we were?" "I hope not," she replied. "Let the world forget. We were only two foolish souls who learned how to love." Before he could answer, a familiar voice broke through the noise. "My prince." "No, forgive me, Adrian." He turned. The Marquis de Rochefort stood near a cart of apples, older, thinner, but still carrying that air of quiet dignity. Adrian's face lit with surprise. "Rochefort, I thought you were far from France." "Exile loses its charm after a while," the Marquis said. "When the Queen died, her decrees died with her. I thought I'd see if peace truly existed in these hills." "It does," Adrian said, "and you are welcome to share it." Rochefort smiled faintly. "You found what none of us ever did, a life not built on fear." Elise curtsied. "You saved him once. We owe you everything." "Then repay me with joy," the Marquis said. "Nothing more." They spent the afternoon walking through the fair, speaking of old times. Rochefort told them the court had changed. Hélène's ambition had ended in disgrace. Her title stripped, her influence gone. "The world has a way of bowing sooner or later," he said. Adrian looked at Elise. "Even beasts can learn gentleness," he murmured. The Marquis nodded, understanding the unspoken memory. As evening fell, the fair quieted. Lanterns were lit, casting warm light over the square. Musicians began a slow tune. Adrian turned to Elise. "May I have this dance, Madame Moreau?" She laughed softly. "You dance? You'll step on every foot in Provence." "I'll risk it," he said, offering his hand. They moved to the center, and the crowd made room. The melody was simple, the rhythm steady. He guided her clumsily at first, but soon they found each other's rhythm, their laughter blending with the music. Rochefort watched from a distance, a faint smile on his face. When the song ended, the crowd applauded. Adrian bowed playfully. "You see, even a fallen prince can keep his balance once in a while." Elise leaned close, whispering, "Only because I guide you." He kissed her forehead. "As you always have." The fair ended with a small fireworks display, sparks rising against the dark sky. Their son sat on Adrian's shoulders, clapping at each burst of color. Elise rested her hand on Adrian's arm, her eyes reflecting the light. "Do you think he will ever know who you were?" she asked. "Only who I became," Adrian said. "A man who loved his family more than his crown." That night they walked home along the river. The water shimmered beneath the moonlight, calm and endless. "Do you remember the night we crossed this river?" Elise asked. "How could I forget?" he said. "You were braver than I was." "I was terrified," she admitted, "but I followed your voice. And I followed your courage." They stopped near the willow tree where they had tied their boat all those years ago. The bark had grown thick, the branches heavy with leaves. He looked at it, smiling. "Even the tree remembers." She stepped closer, resting her head against his chest. "So do I." He held her, the scent of her hair mingling with the night air. "You turned my life into something real. I once ruled a land, but it was empty. Now I tend fields, and I am richer than any king." She looked up at him. "You speak as if we have conquered the world." "We have," he said. "Ours." The next morning they rose early to tend the fields. The air was fresh and the hills glowed gold under the rising sun. Adrian led the oxen while Elise scattered seed. Their son ran between them, chasing butterflies, his laughter echoing across the land. As they worked, the sound of hooves approached. A messenger rode up carrying a scroll sealed with wax. Adrian frowned, taking it. "Who sends this?" he asked. "The Royal Council," the messenger replied. "A decree." Adrian broke the seal and read silently. Then he laughed. Elise looked at him. "What is it?" "The crown offers to restore my title," he said. "They call me back to court." She froze. "And will you go?" He crumpled the parchment and tossed it into the fire pit. "No throne can tempt me now." She smiled with relief. "Then it is truly over." "It ended the day you forgave me," he said. That evening the villagers gathered at their farmhouse. Word had spread that the prince refused the crown. They came with wine, bread and flowers, filling the air with laughter. Someone brought a small statue carved of wood, a bull bowing before a woman's gentle hand. They placed it by the doorway as a gift. Adrian touched it, his eyes soft. He remembers too. Elise stood beside him, their child asleep in her arms. The light from the hearth danced over their faces. Rochefort raised his cup. "To mercy," he said. "May it rule longer than any king." "To mercy," they echoed. As the night deepened, the guests drifted away, leaving only the sound of crickets and the crackle of fire. Adrien sat beside Elise, his arm around her shoulders. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked quietly. "The court." He shook his head. "No, it was all noise and shadows. Here everything speaks the truth." She looked toward the door, where the wooden bull stood in the glow of the firelight. "Do you think our story will be remembered?" He smiled. "Perhaps, but not for who we were, for what we became." She turned to him. "And what is that?" He kissed her gently. "Free." Outside, the wind stirred the vines, whispering through the fields. The stars spread wide above them, endless and bright. Their son stirred in his sleep, murmuring softly, and Elise brushed his hair from his face. Adrien watched her, a quiet awe in his eyes. "When I met you, I thought you were born to humble me. Now I know you were born to save me." She smiled. "And you, to teach me that love is not submission, but strength." He drew her close. "Then we have learned together." The flames flickered lower, painting their faces with warmth. In the hush of that night, time seemed to pause, the world reduced to heartbeats and breath. From the open window, the sound of the river drifted in, steady and calm, carrying away the last echoes of the past. And as dawn began to bloom again over the hills of Provence, the house of the once proud prince and the humble herdsman's daughter stood quiet, filled with laughter, filled with peace, filled with love. Thank you so much for listening to this story, all the way to the end. We hope it moved you as much as it moved us while telling it. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave us a comment telling us where you're listening from and what you liked the most. Rate this story from 0 to 10. What score would you give it? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a like as a show of support. That really motivates us to keep creating and sharing more stories full of emotion and life lessons. And before we go, we want to remind you that an exciting and heartwarming story recommendation will appear on the final screen. If you'd like to enjoy it, just click on the video. Thank you once again for being here, and we'll see you in the next story.